Help me out.
6 kilobytes. I can't even keep up with the kilobytes. Oh, it's killing me.
It's the kilobytes.
I'm going to go on the backbeat. I love the sound of an empty wallet.
Well, then you'll love the sound of my wallet.
Oh yeah, I can't even afford a wallet, you know. Oh, you think you were poor?
Well, when I was a boy, I used to walk to school uphill both ways.
You had a dirt road? We didn't even have a road. Oh my God. All right. Oh my gosh, let me get these maraca players to slow down here.
Shut up, you maraca
Hey,
player.
calm down.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There we go.
Oh,
So
man,
insensitive.
They are going to send me a bad email, aren't they?
Well, they're gonna, you know, yeah, they're probably thinking. So you've abused another musician. That's
Yes,
the way
I've
it goes.
abused another musician. It is the story of my life.
Oh my goodness.
So you've abused another musician by Robert Strong.
I love that book. Well, Robert Strong, since you've introduced yourself, I will introduce myself, Richard Pollock, and
Which you are a musician, by the way. Yeah.
oh sure, rub it in.
I just did.
Well, it is time to start another slice of our life. Radio Science News.
Radio Science News. Hey, for you Radio Science News fans out there, and I know that you are, this is episode number 846.
Oh.
Whoa, 846. Now, anything that ends in a 6,
Yeah.
as you know, is not a prime number. So the factors are 2, 3, 3, and 47.
That's
This
nice.
is July 9th, 2022, and Richard is back from his remote travels, not just
Sure.
travels, but remote travels to the unknown prairie dog lands.
I'm trying to go to as many remote places as possible.
Well, it's nice to have you back here in downtown, beautiful,
Yeah.
humid.
I was just, in fact, I just spoke
Really?
with a friend who I had seen in Arizona, and he said, "How was it?" I said, "Well, let me put it this way: I'm out here mowing and digging something in my backyard, and it's warm, and it's also drizzling." So I said, "My scientific theory is that it may be at 100% humidity."
Yes,
so
it may be because it's drizzling.
that's the dew point, or if you're wise, you will don't do.
Don't
That's the
dew point. Hey, speaking of dew points and drizzling and so forth, we have a Star Watch tonight at Grandview Park at the Zipline Adventure area from 8 until 10 p.m. It's not supposed to be cloudy, but
supposed to be nice tonight.
hoping it's not going to be hazy. That's my wish. There is going to be an 81% moon out.
That's good.
So
Good.
we'll be able to take great moon pictures if it's clear. There's also lots of deep space objects that are nearby the moon, and the moon won't be too bad for some of those. And then and we should have a good time. So it's not supposed to rain tonight, which is always a good thing, because when it rains for your Star Watch, that usually puts a blemish on things.
It does. It slows it way down.
So I'm just sending out the invite that everybody is, of course, invited. This is the second Saturday of every month at Grandview Park.
The big telescope?
We hopefully will get the big telescope out if it warrants it, and I certainly hope it does. We will have at least one 8-inch telescope there, and whatever anyone else brings. So again, if you come, you have a telescope and you want to try it out, or you need to have somebody show you how to use it, that's what we do. It's loads of fun.
Hey, speaking of loads of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you could have the BYOT.
Yes, bring your own telescope.
BYOT. For a second, I was sounding like bring your own bot, but well, no. You'd have embedded systems on telescopes that are basically
sure.
robotics.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Yes, we do.
Unlike the ones that I've been battling the whole time I've been traveling. No. And I'm going to tell you, Robert, one of our first stories, I'm just going to tease you a little bit here, is about quantum alien communication.
Oh man, you are such a tease.
So when you get folks to the page, we're going to start right there.
So obviously that is just to say, Robert, get your act together and get us there, because I want to know about that, because you're using at least 3 of my favorite terms there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to get to the launch pad of science that Richard is teasing me for. If you go to my favorite webpage on the internet, which is www.smartcenter.org, SmartCenter.org, That'll take you to smartcenter.org. And by the way, while you're here and I'm there, or I'm here and you're there, you can see that just below the little trifecta rainbows that say Radio Science News is the Summer Smart Science Camp list 2022. We've got Girls Enjoying Math and Science Camp, July 11th and 12th. I think there still might be a little bit of room, so if somebody
please do
wants
that.
to call us here, we can get you in at the last moment. And then there is Fun with Physics Camp, August 8th and 9th, that is coming up. So just a couple really cool things coming up, because again, the Girls Enjoying Math and Science Camp is July 11th and 12th, this coming Monday and Tuesday. It's really fun stuff. Love that. Okay, so just above that is the trifecta rainbow in triplicate for Radio Science News, and I'm clicking on Radio Science News, the link just above that, and let's see what we get.
Oh, the quantum
I'm
aliens.
looking for quantum aliens.
Sand clouds. Ditch the dark. Boy, when you get that, Robert, this is gonna flip you out. All these dark.
My computer is really running
Slow.
slow.
Oh, well, okay.
So I might have to look onto yours.
Sure,
okay.
you're allowed
so
to.
quantum aliens. See, that's really interesting. Sand clouds, ditch dark.
Now, you may know, Robert, that we've probably taken up an inordinate amount of our useful time talking about dark matter.
Yes.
This is a guy that goes, get over it, move on to something else.
Okay,
You're
so
gonna like
he
that.
is saying ditch the dark matter.
The idea of the dark matter explaining certain things.
Well,
you know.
being that the entire reason for the dark matter is that it's that drawer in your kitchen where everything goes.
Yeah.
Where you don't know where it's supposed to go, so it goes in that drawer. That should be marked dark matter. Whenever you don't know what's going on,
Like my sock
you
drawer, that
need
would
to
be-
blame it on something or someone.
Well, and-
so it's dark matter.
And to their defense, the folks who come up with the concept of dark matter are using it as this is a theoretical thing, and then we need to see, because they wanted to try to explain. Primarily, it had to do with the rotation of but anyway. But the nice thing is, some people are saying, of course, that's cool to look at, but what about over here, the thing that predicts a little bit better? We should. So that'll be fun to talk about.
All right, looking forward to that. Then
Ice towers. Oh,
okay.
Ice towers is a cool little idea that it reminded me of something people used to do back in the old days when they would cut ice and store it. But this is an interesting approach.
Okay.
Sonic Pain. I love that band. They had a couple.
I do, especially when you really turn it up.
Oh, you turned it really up. Sonic Pain. Now, this one is kind of right in the middle. It's right in the middle because
The Eldars.
Elders has to do with the fact that that it's almost kind of like, people may have asked us these questions as we've gotten older. They say, what good are old people anyway, right? Like, what good do they do?
I mean, you can throw them further, but what really good are
So
they?
this has to do with the evolutionary importance of elders and
Of
it's kind of cool.
Eldars and their tiny arms.
This is probably the biggest controversy, Robert, in your paleontological world.
So, are we talking about T-Rexes
We're
and their
talking
tiny
about,
arms?
Well, it's so funny because actually, like, for example, the one story about ditching dark matter, there was actually a big story came out that said they just did a huge study, and the most sensitive thing, and they went, we haven't found anything that it said yet.
Yes.
Meaning, like, well, yeah. So I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the story from the guys who say ditch dark matter.
Good.
Now, over here, they're talking about having. There's a new fossil that was found in South America, or relatively new, and so it was. The discussion was a lot about why did T-Rex and these other things. Now, these are actually different. It's one of those things where they developed among different
Right.
groups, different organisms at different times. But they're postulating why the tiny arms. And then I was on another site. I think the Phys.org people had another theory. So I'm thinking this must be the most burning issue in paleontology right now. Why the tiny arms, right?
And then next up is sexy arms. Now, I realize that there are lots of people that think that I have sexy arms.
Well,
I really don't think so.
could you probably bring them inside?
Could you please put your shirt back on? I know.
So the whole issue of one of them was tiny arms and one sexy arms, because these folks have sort of a different perspective on those arms, and we'll.
So So are they saying that tiny arms was a mating sort of a thing?
We'll just have to see when we get to
Okay,
that.
all right. Okay,
and
I'm
then
fascinated by that.
we have a cool little piece of work on what is now believed to be the oldest hominid, piece of bone material found in
Okay.
Spain. It is in Europe, so that and it pushes things back quite a bit. Now, there were some stories. Last week I was like chopping out the stories. You notice I just moved the bears and the dogs and the tree. I just
saw
moved
that.
them down.
Okay.
If we end up with just tons of time at the end of the
Then
show,
we
what a
can
joke.
go there. Okay.
We'll go back. But we may have started talking. I saw so many stories about sodium ion batteries and things this week. And
yeah.
different. One of them had to do with electrolytes and yada yada. And so I thought I'm going to make sure we cover that. And the only story about robots, this is one I decided I was going to ditch it because we've had it on there for a couple weeks and we never got to it. But I thought it had a chart. So let's look at it real quick because it has a little
this
chart.
is the follow bots?
The follow bots.
Follow bots.
Follow. You remember the follow bots? They sing and they follow you around.
I didn't know that they sang.
Well, they'll do anything pretty much. Now, the reason why I put this up was because I couldn't. Usually, I'll find a good chart on one of the other stories, and I like to include a chart.
Yes.
But
Ooh.
we have been talking, and people have actually accused me of bad mouthing the robots. They're going, the robots do so many good things, and
They do so many good things if they're programmed correctly.
and they'll tie your shoes so you don't have to. And no, on and on and on.
Use Velcro. Come
Well,
on.
and so.
So this is
another kind of feel-good story.
Recent one. This is July 1st, 2022. A model that allows robots to follow and guide humans in crowded environments.
Now that sounds so benign and kind, doesn't it?
That sounds a little creepy, actually.
Well, that's
why
my
do you
point.
want somebody following you in a crowded environment?
Well,
Are you worried about your safety?
Well, they get into
And wait. This is follow and guide.
follow and guide. Hey, go that way. Hey,
Though,
go that way.
which are two completely different. Well, wait. So is this somebody that's following you and sort of whispering in your ear, "Hey, there's ice cream over there"?
Maybe, I think
Oh,
so.
okay. All right.
It sounds like a very, and again, I think it's fair to approach it from what are the positive things, because we're talking about assistance robots. And it says there, and this is kind of the way they set you up. Assistant robots are typically mobile robots designed to assist humans in malls, airports, healthcare facilities, home environments, and various other settings. So they can help users find their way around unknown environments, guiding them to a specific location, or sharing important information with them.
So
those
do they have to be actual physical robots, or could they be on your phone?
Well, they're talking the way they're picturing it. They typically show that. I hate to say it, it almost looks like one of the. I'm not sure if you're a Doctor Who fan. That's a laugh. I'm sure you've seen
that
it.
looks like. Yeah.
You see the one up in the upper right, guiding in crowded environments.
Yeah.
Apparently, this thing is clearing the way for you. You hear the sounds. You know what I'm talking about.
I believe that it is clearing humanity. What it is.
It doesn't say how they're clearing this way, but
Yeah,
they're getting
I
you through.
think that's a Doctor Who robot.
Well,
That's not a good idea. And then the one in the lower left, what was the name of that little robot?
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah. The little sort of like quizzical little look on his
Yeah.
face and the big eyes and.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the thing I just wanted to put this up because it had a chart, but I just want to say that, I don't know. It's like so many. I don't know. I'm just going to pick one at random that pops up in my head. Nuclear energy will be so good for you because it'll provide free and clean electricity and won't blow anybody up.
Right.
Really. I mean,
And,
just saying
everyone will have a nuclear reactor in their garage.
Yeah.
And it will give you unlimited energy practically for free. I remember reading that as a small child.
Sure.
And thinking,
Anyway,
are you insane?
So I'm just saying that it's probably well known that people say quite often that many things are a two-edged sword. Something that could trim your beard, could trim your neck. There's that kind of a thing. This is about deep reinforcement learning developed by this team of researchers. Appears to work well in these simulations. So they're going to try to validate it using physical robots in real-world environments. Now, of course, I guess they're going to get rid of all those cute little guide dogs and all that stuff.
Well, what about the jobs that the human beings are currently doing at the information booth?
Well, I know. You must have been. I've been talking with John Smith too. We've been talking about a lot of this stuff. John and I both agree that we typically will not use the automatic checkout at Kroger. So, having said that,
so wait, so we are both agreed that the one on the lower left looks like Wall-E.
That's it,
right?
Wall-E.
Wall-E.
Well,
and then the one on the upper right and the lower right looks like the Daleks.
Daleks, yeah.
Okay,
really cheesy looking garbage cans.
So why would you have the Daleks leading you unless they're going to lead you to slaughter?
Well,
I mean, this is.
You're jumping to conclusions.
No, I am jumping off the cliff. If you're going to create a little robot-looking thing that's going to help people, don't make it look like one of the worst evil villains in Robotica.
Well, and that come on. And that was one of their points. And again, I could be reading between the lines, but when it says help you in malls, airports, healthcare, home environments, and other settings. All right, so enough of these guys. I don't want anybody to think we're continuously picking on the road.
Oh, no.
We're just continually, as my English teacher would say.
When the human beings fall, I do not want to go with them. I will be a slave to the Robotica, just like the next will.
I will be guided to safety.
I will be guided to safety by the Daleks, right?
Follow me. Okay, so I'm going to leap back to the first part because
leaping back into the quantum leap.
It sounds like a scary movie, Quantum Aliens, right?
Yeah.
But this is, and again, there are so many things. I'm just going to say it is my proclivity. I'm using this big, heavy.
Wow, you are good.
I'm leaning into a proclivity.
You are definitely leaning.
I love so many things about science, but I really love the things that are like sort of directly accessible, like. If I'm digging a hole, if I find a tool that's scientifically superior, I revel in that kind of thing. I love the idea of things like the dark energy and string theory, and we've talked about that with our fellow nerds and things. Mm-hmm. But sometimes these things I'm going, wow, this has so much that we can't know or yet know, and I don't want people to stop thinking about this stuff. But this is another one of those really kind of cool concepts coming out of the research that's being done on Earth. It says
aliens could send quantum messages to Earth. Calculations suggest a new study finds that quantum signals could travel over interstellar distances. Now, are we talking about quantum mechanical entanglement
I think
messages?
They are, because the basis, if you scroll down, you're going to see the first picture.
Because being that quantum mechanical entangling not only goes long distances, but it goes almost instantaneous.
Right. That's the interesting
thing.
Which
means that it essentially sends things or sends a signal, I should say, quicker than the normal speed of light.
Well, which is why people are so interested in it now. Right. And it starts from this picture. They're illustrating this. This is kind of illustrating the fact that there have been people who are working with quantum communication networks where they've included information satellite to another location. Mm-hmm. They're starting to close in on the idea. Well, not that they're understanding it necessarily any better, but they're saying we have been able to verify that we are apparently, through the concept, like you say, quantum entanglement and this is allowing us to, not only is it a more secure communication, but as you say, instantaneous or faster. Stock traders will get this first, I'm sure. But now they're basically talking that having understood this concept, they're thinking that advanced, one of the things we've often talked about is how aliens would communicate. I remember one time we were talking about. Well, they would if they were just using typical stuff like we're aware of, even radio signals or electromagnetic stuff, they would probably have the technology and brilliance to say have their communications just so close to the hydrogen hum that's in the, and they would be able to communicate, and we wouldn't be able to hear it because we're not smart enough to cut that out, cut that thing. Mm-hmm. But these guys are actually saying that they're and I think this is a great thing to say, is that aliens would certainly at some point be able to use like a quantum communication that would be, as you say, instantaneous or nearly instantaneous.
But I was under the impression that to do quantum entanglement, that you had to be aware that something was being entangled, meaning that that part of it has to be in your physical grasp,
Right.
and part of it has to be in their physical
Right.
grasp.
And you might have to agree.
And then and then when they change it,
You would.
ours will change, or when we change ours,
Yeah.
it will change. But you have to somehow do that. So
Oh, yeah.
So this is all fine and dandy, but I think that the quantum entangled interstellar message will happen after they hand us, here's the interesting quantum mechanical
Or their-
entanglement device.
Or their representative in your
Yes.
neighborhood.
Yeah. So I don't see this happening before that happens.
Well, and I'm actually I think that in some ways these guys are talking about, because they don't jump into the whole idea of they're basically talking about using quantum particles to send information, and they're looking at it, the fact that the decoherence that takes place would be less, and
Okay.
so they may actually be thinking more in the typical actual broadcast, but depending on how they
Okay.
use.
All right.
But in fact, they're talking about how in particular X-rays could travel unscathed through interstellar space and therefore wouldn't succumb to decoherence, and so
Except a X-ray is going to travel at the speed of light.
yeah, that's
So
this is why I'm thinking this is
So this would still be
the electromagnetic spectrum.
communication at the speed of light.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so scientists are see, what's funny is they refer to the quantum communication, and they just blithely say a technology that uses quantum particles to send
Sure.
information.
All right.
But the quantum communication research that's being done, and they even refer to in their picture up here, I'm going to say I remember it was a satellite and somewhere in Israel,
yeah.
had to do with maintaining and communications in a theoretical quantum entanglement scenario. So anyway, we'll see. I'm going to say, if nothing else, Robert, I want you to feel comfortable that the quantum aliens they're still a few parsecs off. They're not here. I found all these interesting
Are you
things.
sure?
I'm not sure. I tried to sound confident there.
Oh, but you're not. Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah,
fine.
and this one I also shortened this one. This could have been B movie Attack of the Brown Dwarves, but it's not. This is about sand clouds.
Sand clouds.
Sand clouds. At first I'm thinking, wait a minute, because we're looking at weather on other places in our solar system, and we know that this is actually something about clouds of silicates.
Okay.
Confirm an old theory and talks about these, they're so judgmental, failed stars, the brown dwarfs. And they call them dwarfs instead of dwarves. My English teacher is rolling
I know.
over
Would be
right
very
now.
upset. So sand clouds are common in atmospheres of brown dwarfs. So a brown dwarf for our listeners, that's an object that is larger than a planet, smaller than a star in mass, not in size, and could have nuclear fusion of deuterium and iridium inside of it. Yeah. So they would be star-like for a short period of time until that's all gone. But it's not massive enough to be a star-like object in that it can fuse a hydrogen 1 into a hydrogen with another a hydrogen 1 to create eventually a helium. So these are probably going to be warm. They're going to be dense, and they're saying that they have clouds of silicates, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, because its atmosphere is not going to be a plasma like a star. So
here's an interesting. They're talking about. They have found at least 6 examples of silicate clouds, and the one kind of, to get an idea of what this is like, they're saying that floating in one of these clouds would feel like being in a sandstorm, according to the planetary scientist Mark Marley of the That's Bob Marley's younger brother.
yeah.
Of the University
Cool.
of Arizona
What-
in Tucson. I was like, man, I could have stopped and seen this guy. If he said if you took a scoop out of it and were able to bring it home, you would have hot sand.
So are we talking like warm sand,
and-
or are
and-
we talking about like red hot sand?
Well, and the thing that I found interesting was that first they were sort of, I was getting the sense they're talking about quartz and olivine, and that it would be, first I thought they were talking about molten, but, so when I saw this, the reason why this intrigued me was, I actually, one of the places I stopped at in Golden, Colorado was a friend from college who became an electronics engineer, and he's now retired in a beautiful place there. And so we were talking about some weird little things, and I said, hey, have you ever heard of piezonuclear reactions? And he was like, no. And we talked about that a little bit, and when I saw this article, I'm thinking to myself, so they're talking about quartz and this stuff, and like in a sandstorm,
it's
banging into
together.
each other and stuff.
So you could get all kinds of interesting
So
reactions.
yeah, that was
going
my,
on.
taking it a step one step too far, but you know what I'm getting
It
at.
says for dwarfs and low mass stars hotter than about 1700 degrees Celsius, silicates exist as a vapor, and the objects show no signs of clouds. But below that temperature, signs of clouds start to appear,
Yeah, so you
becoming
assume that-
thickest around 1300 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, so like
Then the
this,
signal disappears for brown dwarfs that are cooler than about 1,000. That's because
Yeah.
you're
Accretion
not
or the-
getting large crystals,
Yeah.
and it essentially is snowing out.
Yeah.
But it's not snowing out water; it's snowing out silicates.
silicate particles. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, this
Very
has a lot
cool.
of interesting things, and it's I think they talk a lot about, again, as we often say on Radio Science News, any one of these articles, you need to respect the fact that there's more to look at if you read through this and peruse it about it. I mean, in fact, they're talking about recently launched James Webb will study atmospheric chemistry and exoplanets and brown dwarfs, and will specifically be looking for the clouds, according to some of their forward-looking stuff. Ditch the dark, Robert. I don't hope this could become a fight. People could get right now down at the pub where they're lifting those big flagons of German beer.
That's what they do.
They're arguing. How dare you? So I thought this was really good. This is from the people at Phys.org,
Okay.
PHYS.
I really like them.
.org,
They're cool.
as opposed to the people at Fizzy.org, which is,
Oh, I
drop
like
those
that
tablets of delicious, great stuff in your water. But anyway, what they're looking at is something that I was not quite familiar with, this sort of opposing concept. They go through and they explain that Newtonian physics does not work. It says beginning in the early 70s, scientists noticed that Newtonian physics did not work for disk galaxies. Stars at their outer edges, far from the gravitational force of all the matter at the center, were moving faster than
they were supposed to. And then, because of that, people said, well, then there must be some source of gravitating mass
Yeah.
that we can't see. Well, if you can't see it,
that wouldn't have been my first.
What color is it? It's obviously dark.
Well, see,
so
that
that's where the dark
that wouldn't have been my
matter came.
first. That wouldn't have been my first thought.
What you would have thought was, oh, well, then we are probably missing something.
We're missing something. I wouldn't.
And that's what people are calling dark matter, the
Yeah.
stuff that you're missing.
Well, and so, it was the basis for it. Says this is when physicists began to propose, as you said, an invisible substance
Right.
that was providing extra gravitational pull or extra mass. It says a theory, and they underlined it with ...
Yes, they did.
That's
They
become
underlined-
hugely popular. It is.
Hugely
God, it has
popular.
taken up so many.
However, in a recent review, my colleagues
Oh,
and I
yeah.
suggest that observations across a vast range of scales are much better explained in an alternative theory of gravity proposed by Israeli physicist
Mordechai
Mordechai
Milgrom.
in 1982.
And
called
I've seen
the
this.
Milgrom Dynamics or MOND, requiring no invisible matter.
Oh, see, there you go. So anyway, this is an interesting thing where they go on to explain. In fact, if you click on the MOND right there, I think it takes you to a. It says, wait a minute, this is an ad. Close this ad. that goes to what it explains what modified Newtonian dynamics is
Right.
all about, MOND. And so this is cool to read over because
Okay.
it explains, why he created this. The hypothesis, the original motivation was to come up with another explanation why the velocities of stars and galaxies were observed to be higher velocity than expected based on Newtonian mechanics. So he basically says the discrepancy could be resolved if the gravitational force experienced by a star were proportional to the square of its centripetal acceleration as opposed to centripetal acceleration itself. So he's come up with, okay, so they go on, he's basically saying there's another way of looking at this that fits some known, or as he's proposing, mathematics.
So it says Mond's main postulate is that when gravity becomes very weak, as occurs at the edge of galaxies, it starts behaving differently from Newtonian physics. In this way, it's possible to explain why stars, planets, and gas in the outskirts of over 150 galaxies rotate faster than expected based on just their visible mass. But Mond doesn't merely explain such rotation curves. In many cases, it predicts them. So
that's why these guys are looking at, and there is a chart. We're not going to take probably a lot of time. This is something that if you are I'm not going to say a big fan of. Many people have been very interested in this whole dark matter thing, and we've covered it a lot. But it goes down and it kind of has a big chart. When you click on it, it doesn't open up as well as I'd like to see. Maybe my browser is weird. If you click on it, what it kind of does is it explains where this works well. It's excellent agreement with certain things, works well with other things, plausibly works. Some tension in the theories and strong disagreement. This is a lot to read through. I mean, each one of these topics is just like, wow. I mean, I don't know how many people have looked at the RV, I guess that's rotational velocity of NGC 3109 associated. I mean, a lot of these things are so specific and so, I'm going to say, deep in the weeds for.
Yeah.
But this is something people are looking at because, I love the idea that there are at least two ideas about why
That's
something.
good. It's always nice to have two ideas. Now, it's interesting. If you don't have two ideas, then the one idea doesn't really ever get looked at closely.
Well, yeah, because you're.
And if there are flaws, and there's always flaws with every idea, then the flaws will carry on for generations.
Yeah. So this is a good thing.
Okay.
Next story is a more down-to-earth thing. I love spinning around out there in intergalactic space whenever I get the chance, Robert.
Me too.
No matter which speed. People think, you should be moving faster. I've calculated your mass. So ice towers. This is one of those little stories that, when I first saw it, I was thinking how to build better ice towers for drinking water and irrigation. One of the things that I have often noted, Robert, here in Wheeling, West Virginia area, we often have that thing where in the summertime it's hot and humid, and in the wintertime it gets really
colder.
cold. Yeah, and I can remember thinking that there could be interesting things that you could do in the winter that would be helpful for you. Like if you were going to build some structure,
you could build it out of water.
You could build it out of
that would actually change phase just because of the temperature.
And it would be rigid, solid material, and then
I could call it ice.
You could call it ice. Well, the reason why this is so cool, they're talking about ice stupas or towers.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look down here, you're thinking, well, this is interesting. It looks like a dry area, wouldn't you say?
It looks like a very dry area.
Well, and guess what? I think it's a very cold area too.
Yes.
But the thing that is so neat is that these very smart agricultural people in India, it's in the Ladakh region, some communities live high in the mountains, and what they do is they build fountains of water, and then during the winter they just spray it up into the air and they let that ice collect. And then they use that for a long time over the summer for irrigation and just for drinking water.
Because, so it would be cheaper to do that than it would be to build a big dam or something,
yeah.
right?
And the thing that's nice about it is that they build this over a period of time when they're not doing that much agriculture, and
That's a really good point.
But there's no good way to store it because, like you said, unless you can structurally get it to stay where you want it, and then gradually, like a snow cone up in the mountains, melt at a point where it's usable. So the thing about this is, though, this has been, and it kind of goes to what you were talking about in the United States. We have we have water that's needed here, and we can't get it. And a lot of it's just a matter of relocating.
So essentially, they're going to make an artificial glacier,
Right.
on a small scale.
In fact, further down, it
and
says,
then use it.
It literally down further, they call it the towering human-made glaciers.
Oh, cool.
Slowly release the water during the spring months for communities to drink or irrigate.
That makes perfect sense.
Well, so the neat thing about this is somebody looked at this whole system, and they're talking about it. So the 10th annual meeting of the Frontiers of Hydrology in San Juan, Puerto Rico. They were talking about this. So, long story short, if you scroll down, they're looking at a way. Okay, how could we do this more efficiently?
Right.
And the thing that makes it more efficient is that here's the second paragraph from the bottom. That said, after 4 months, the team, what they wanted to do was find a way. Okay, it's like when you're just sprinkling the water at the same rate all the time, and you're not paying attention to the temperature or all that kind of stuff. It's not as efficient as it might be. So by just tweaking this a little bit, it says after 4 months, the team found that the continuously sprinkling, where they just let it just pour out, that it spouted 1,100 cubic meters of water and amassed 53 cubic meters of ice. So that's a lot of water for what you got, to get the ice. But once they put in the automated system, they ended up only having to spray 150 cubic meters.
And make 61 cubic meters of ice without any frozen pipes.
And so they didn't run into the problems and all that.
Wow.
So it says they're now trying to simplify their prototype to make it affordable for high mountain communities around the world. We eventually want to reduce the cost, so it's within 2 months' salary of the farmers, which is around $200 to $400.
So they can have they can have 61 cubic meters of ice for $400.
Yeah. And they're also going to be...
That's a lot of water.
Well, and a lot of it is that by just optimizing what was kind of a natural thing, because everybody knows that way back in the... You can go look at your Currier and Ives plates, Robert, that you have stacked in your kitchen.
I do, yeah.
Right there. And I think there's one where they're like cutting ice on the lakes, because
on the lakes,
that was a big deal. You up in New England where it got colder, or just far enough to freeze stuff, people actually there were whole industries of cutting and shipping ice and then using it over the summer.
So here's the thought.
Yes.
We here in North America, we have hot summers.
I've heard that.
Why don't we in our parks make these stupas out of ice? They are reflective, therefore they're going to cool off the area. So for these heat domes that we've created our urban places, why don't we have these stupas in the parks? They would reflect light, they would bring moisture.
Yeah.
We would have the water tied up into these things.
Well, and the other thing too is I do know that one of the nice things about purifying, like if you want to purify water, if it has like particles, one of the things that happens when you freeze it is that basically it freezes out is relatively, there are ways of it that adds to the purification of it. I know that this would be plausible even in our region, because I know there's a big story about some place in sort of southern West Virginia in the mountains where the snow would last. Well, the gist of the story most recently was that in older times, before global climate change, if you believe in that sort of thing,
if you do,
this particular town somewhere in the mountains of West Virginia could count on being able to go back up into this hollow where the particular angles of the mountains and everything meant that there would still be a big pile of snow and ice that they used for the 4th of July picnic, which is now, it's not happening anymore. So we're definitely within that zone where it would be plausible to do something like this.
If you did this, it would help to warm the winters up just a little bit because of the exothermic energy.
When it freezes, that actually
when ice
releases.
So it would warm up the winters, and it would smooth out the hot temperatures in the summer.
You could just do this on top of your house. I wouldn't recommend it. I
I
mean, your
think
house
I
may.
might do it in the backyard.
I was going to say your house and my house may not be structurally suited for it. But this concept is when you first look at this, you're realizing that this is what the farmers are doing with just some pumps. Now, and again, it may be possible that the water doesn't just flow away and disappear.
Sure.
But they could, maybe they pump it back up. But by increasing the efficiency of this process with just a few simple things like spraying when it's cold, not when it's warm, and then you don't clog your pipes, so the whole thing shuts down. I mean, even this picture, this is as present in this high mountain
really
region of
interesting.
India that they're doing this. Looks like they've got little flags all around it, and maybe they could start skiing down the mountain here. I don't know. That might be too much to ask.
I really like this idea.
They could do shave ice up there, man. That was really a shave ice. Shave ice. Yo, you Hawaiian people know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to have to zoom through some of this. The sonic pain.
Sonic pain.
Now, this is a big, again, how sound reduces pain in mice. Again,
Those poor mice.
these mice
They're
they
constantly being
endure
abused.
so much stuff. I mean, many people will remember this. There were stories, and part of where it became a big deal was when dentists started playing. They knew that if you could play soothing music, or even depending on what people like during dental procedures, that it actually made a difference, right?
No, it
or at least
doesn't.
if you played it loud, you couldn't hear them screaming. It was the dentist. I didn't hear anything, did you? It said way back to the 1960s, studies in humans have shown that music and other kinds of sound help alleviate acute and chronic pain. And they talk about including dental and medical surgery, labor delivery. So this is something. The idea that pain reduction was possible, but it was kind of complicated. When they did this with mice, again, read through this whole article, and they get very complex on how they
the
did it.
researchers first exposed mice with inflamed paws. How do they get inflamed paws?
I think they lit a match or something. I don't know.
To 3 types of sound: a pleasant piece of classical music, an unpleasant arrangement of the same piece, and white noise. Surprisingly, all 3 types of sound, when played at low intensity relative to background noise, about the level of a whisper, reduced pain sensitivity in the mice.
Now here's the big surprise. If you're reading
Higher
this section,
intensities of the same sound had no effect on
it
animals'
didn't make any
pain
difference.
responses.
It didn't.
So, as long as you've got a background noise that's essentially a whisper, it reduces pain. Anything more than that, then
Yeah.
you're just being mean.
Well, and it almost sounds like, well, if you had, I mean, one of the big things about having, say, pink noise or white noise,
Yeah.
that it helps you to sleep because basically you have basically just a whitewash of of stuff. It almost sounds like what they're implying here is that it has to do with the way the mice are paying attention to something changing in their environment. Like if you could only hear the background noise, or you could only hear the loud music that they were playing, there's nothing. It's almost like by whispering, it's kind of like it lights up some part of their brain where they go, I have to listen. There's something, there's information here or something. So of course they're probably going to be applying for more funds.
Well, it says at the very last, it says the Basic Research, National Science Foundation, blah, 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 and Technology of China Research Funds.
China Brain Science.
Of the Double First Class Initiative.
Wow.
So yes, so lots of people are supporting the research. It sounds like that they might be looking for a little bit more, but this is fascinating.
I think they're worried about a rebellion among the mice. I think that could be really.
Well, if I kept being abused and my paws were inflamed,
Well, I know.
I would be a little upset too.
Well, and it is interesting that they talk about a very soothing piece of music according to humans, and then they're criticizing the other arrangement, which is less. I think the violins are out of tune in this one. No, anyway, so all right.
So it doesn't matter what the music is.
No,
it matters that it's played at a particular volume that's
that's
soft.
what was interesting. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, let's just take a quick look at why elders might be important, and that'll give us hope for further survival. The importance of elders. Researchers argue that the long human lifespan is due in part to the contributions of older folks. Oh, come on now. No, this is actually a really well written thing, and I mean, in some ways, I think it has to do with they're seeing that humans being able to communicate, or humans being able to accurately, teach things to the. I mean, I'm picturing the idea of Chief Dan George and passing on the wisdom and all this kind of stuff. But in some ways, it seems very common sense to me. I mean, I was thinking they're going to say because grandparents are always babysitting, but that wasn't it at all.
Yeah.
That wasn't it at all. They're talking about the large surplus of adults. At first, you're thinking in any society, and they at the end refer to chimpanzee societies, and so I mean, one of the big things is, say, within chimpanzee societies, even though there is a lot of care within a community of parental groups and aunts and uncles and all that kind of stuff, typically the older ones do not interact that much, so
Right.
they don't add that much benefit. Whereas they're saying in human society, where we're able to pass along information or teach wisdom and all that we need to look at that as having been a kind of a special evolutionary advantage that other creatures don't have. I mean, obviously, a lot of creatures, I mean, some of which mate and die. The whole purpose is just to procreate
mate.
quantities
Right.
of their species and stuff.
But yeah, the idea that after you've gone through that youthful phase, that you would still be useful.
Right. And
It's
that's
not useful to producing offspring. It's useful to the continuation of something else.
the continuity of that. So anyway, the thing that is, it's kind of interesting because they do kind of say that they kind of thought, it said, even so, authors showed that if they could still, the idea was that as humans became better at X, Y, and Z, agriculture, hunting,
Right.
fire, that just meant that now they had extra that would mean that it made sense. These people could hang around almost like a
Right.
vestige or something.
Right.
But they're saying it's the other way.
Yeah.
It's a story. They say it suggests that human longevity is really a story about cooperation. And they mentioned that the chimpanzees don't, as they age, don't really add that much to it. So, so it's really cool. Much of the huge value of our elders goes untapped, he added. It's time
I
to think
agree.
seriously about how to reconnect the generations and harness some of the elder wisdom and expertise. I mean, that's even changed even within a few generations here in our country, where
Right.
people used to live in proximity to their,
That's right.
they would go and they would hear stories or learn how to
Right.
cook something and all that. So
Yeah,
it's-
they would pass down something about making tools, making food, making making the crops work better. That makes perfect sense.
And in many societies, this it still continues this way. Like having been out west, where I'm looking at there were so many indigenous people in various places where it's very clear that they that the most revered in their societies were the elders. So fair. Now, well, Robert, we're finally getting into it. The most important thing going on in science today: tiny arms, sexy arms. Which is it? Let's start with tiny arms.
Let's go tiny arms.
We'll go with tiny arms. A new giant dinosaur gives insight into why many prehistoric meat eaters had such tiny arms. So, so this is one look. These guys from the University of Minnesota. That's up there where they drained all the. I told you they drained all the prairie grass lands and turned them into corn and soybeans. An international team has discovered a new big meat-eating dinosaur dubbed Meraxus gigas, maybe gigas, that provides clues about the evolution and anatomy of predatory dinosaurs, such as the Tyrannosaurus and the Carcharodontosaurus. So those are two different dinosaurs, but they had a very similar thing. As they evolved, apparently, they had smaller and smaller arms.
See, that's just fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and so again, you have to kind of scroll down and read through this. I'm just going to say that this one that they have just found in South America, the Meraxes. And I think they even mentioned that some version of this family, maybe the Carcharodons, is in the latest version of Jurassic World or Jurassic Kingdom, whatever it is now. So it says, has this Having this new discovery allowed us to probe the question of why do these meat-eating dinosaurs get so big and have little dinky arms? Oh, now they're really
Dinky?
good. Dinky, how
That's
dare
just
you?
mean.
It basically they kind of go down into the fact that they looked at all these large mega predatory dinosaurs in all three families of theropods that grew in that range, and they're saying that the one thing that seems to be clear as they evolved, the skulls grew larger,
Right.
and the arms
got smaller.
Yeah, so first you're thinking, is it just a thing of balance? Like
Right.
mass, how much mass is up front, and if you have to eat bigger stuff, but you don't need it. It says we're suggesting that there's a different take on this. Why should we shouldn't worry so much about what the arms are being used for, because the arms are actually being reduced as a consequence of the skulls massively. See, they're almost getting into a thing where it's a vestigial, regression.
Essentially, yeah.
It says, whatever the arms may or not be used for, they're taking on a secondary function since the skull is being optimized.
Right.
And I'm thinking that's kind of a little simplistic.
And see what when I'm looking at our large skull here, that is right behind me, I'm looking at this thing as a bone crunching lever.
Yeah, it really
What
is.
you want is the largest lever with the biggest heavy teeth,
Largest capacity.
with the largest capacity for muscles, so that when it's eating something, it can chew bone, essentially. Chew bone and break bone. Well, the only way to do that is to have a huge skull, the largest skull that you possibly can.
Yeah. And then, of
so
course,
it makes sense to me that you would give up anything to have the largest, most powerful jaw that you possibly could get.
Yeah. And so the idea that the arms are becoming almost unimportant thing or vestigial in their nature does make some sense. Now, I will mention, Robert, because when I was reading this, I included this story also because the research team included, I'm going to mention somebody, West Virginia Institute of Technology Assistant Professor Jonathan Mitchell.
Oh, very cool.
Maybe we'll run across Jonathan Mitchell sometime. All right, so I think they also point out that there may be other things and we need to think about.
Yeah.
So the other guys who also did a story, this was a completely different story. It says newfound dinosaur had tiny arms before T-Rex made them cool. And this is a neat looking little, the Meraxus gigas was
and this
a massive.
Is the sexy arms.
Yeah, it was a massive predatory dinosaur with a big head and tiny, but here's the point. They make the point, it had tiny arms, but they were very muscular.
Yeah.
The idea that if they were just sort of something that was now dead weight and vestigial and needed to just go away, just like somebody would say, well, look at a rattlesnake. It found out it could move faster by eventually
with out legs.
Yeah, even though you can find in snakes the vestiges, the vestigial bones that are still left, like the snake hips. It says the arms, what the arms were for remains a mystery, but they come out and say mating is a possibility. Because it is clear that they're saying that these are still quite muscular, as if they had. Oh, it makes fun of them, right? It says T-Rex's tiny arms have launched 1,000 sarcastic memes. I love you this much. Can you pass the salt? Row your. Back off, snarky jokesters.
Snarky jokesters.
Snarky jokesters. A newfound species of big-headed carnivorous dinosaurs with tiny forelimbs suggests those arms weren't just an evolutionary punchline. Arm reduction, along with giant heads, evolved independently in different dinosaur lineages. So
this is fascinating.
Yeah, so they're talking about again the same thing, the same Meraxus gigas found in Argentina, and the one other thing was it kind of came and went quickly. So there's another, like there was maybe something that. There are always multiple reasons why something disappears, and they were looking at the evolutionary things.
So the very last thing here says that these arms were surprisingly muscular, suggesting that they were more than just an inconvenient limb.
So they were functional.
One possibility is that the arms helped lift the animal from a reclining to a standing position. Well, that's certainly
that's a very common sense thing, because even if you picture like a big eating machine that's like that's mostly powered by being able to run on massive legs and hips and things, maybe that's your fulcrum point.
Right.
When it's on the ground or something, then
How do you get back up?
it's that. And then of
Right.
course it aided in the idea that it would have somehow aided in mating is
Right.
is really
Makes-
common
makes,
sense too.
Makes perfect sense.
Because because you're talking about something making it from one generation to the next,
Right.
and so
It has to.
the selective advantage of being either to get up or get down, those are both good for you.
Get up or get down.
You can get up, you can get down. So I love this picture though. This is a nice illustration. Whoever
Yeah.
did this,
Yeah, it's very nice.
it's got a lot of good action there. Of course, he's
And
running,
some great
He's
teeth.
apparently running away from these plant eaters in terror. Now, and the whole shape of his head and everything
Yeah.
is actually more. I'm seeing like a more circular, powerful bite. But who knows? This is a new guy on the scene. One of the carcharodons.
So, Eurohominid.
Hominid. Oh, so's your old man. Oldest European human fossil has possibly been uncovered in Spain. This is cool because until now, the oldest hominid fossil found in Europe was a jawbone and was, this picture enlarged and I can't see the whole thing anymore. Hello, I'm telling you, computer technology. The part about this that is cool is that they think this thing might be 1.4 million years old.
Wow.
And also, in conjunction with, tools and things. And so I'm thinking in Spain, 1.4 million years, and the most recent before this
Is 1.2.
1.2.
Right.
So, but when people go, is that a long time, Robert? 1 point? Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
long time.
that's a long time ago.
That's long. That's longer than the when they wrote the Constitution of America and then erased parts of it. They basically are saying they found it 2 meters below where the other one was found. So they're concluding it's logical to think that it's older,
right.
just from sedimentation. Though that's not always the case, but that's the thing that's really cool. This place is Atapuerca, is a place in Spain. They think that this probably would represent the earliest population that colonized Europe.
Wow.
And that's really cool. It's one of the UNESCO sites, and United Nations is conserving this thing. Contains thousands of hominid fossils and tools, including a flint that is 1.4 million years old. So they found a piece of worked flint without the help of any prairie dogs either.
No prairie dog
No
flint.
prairie dogs there. So this is really cool. We might even get through these stories. I would be so
Is that
shocked.
possible?
Sodium ion.
Sodium ions.
If we could just tout the wonderful things about sodium. This is cool because I have seen multiple, and I think this may be the one that's about whether they're using a different No, this is not this is one where they have layered metal oxides.
So it says team creates anode-free sodium batteries with high energy densities and long life cycles.
So just that little overview sounds good, but I'm thinking, well, how good? What are the life cycles?
So it's good to have a long life cycle, but can you recharge it over and over again? Those are the
things.
Yeah, this is something that you have to.
One of the
out,
huge things about this is, and I think why so many people are looking into it is, as you well know, Robert, salt is sort of common on the planet Earth.
It is very common.
And it says here, sodium-ion batteries could have numerous advantages over the conventional and the widely used lithium-based batteries. Most notably,
it's cheaper.
It's abundant. It's so abundant and can be easily sourced. They could be affordable and easy to produce.
On a large scale.
It says, but despite that, it says the most sodium-ion batteries have exhibited low energy densities due to the relatively large atomic size of sodium and its considerable weight. Blah, blah. That's the energy per mass weight kind of thing. But basically, they're finding the ways of these batteries have. If you look at the picture, they diagram.
It says we report an initial anode-free sodium battery with an energy density of over 200 watt-hours per kilogram, which is even higher than that of the commercial lithium ion phosphate.
Yeah, this is one of the big deal ones. Yeah.
Ooh, that's really cool.
It says basically, this is a part that I love because they could have researched this at the Carbon Research Institute.
We could have.
Through introducing graphitic carbon coating on the the aluminum collector and boron-containing electrolytes of the battery, we show that uniform nucleation and robust interface enable reversible and crack-free sodium deposition. So,
Well, that's obvious.
well, heck, everybody knew that. I mean, the real bottom line is that, first of all, they're talking about this, they're looking at all kinds of different ways to enhance the lithium batteries, and the one they mention is one of the current darlings, the lithium. We're about to run out of time.
Hey, it says here that the cycling lifetime of the sodium battery without applying additional pressures reaches 260 cycles, which is the longest life for large cells with zero excess sodium. So
they're making
you can
Yeah.
recharge it multiple times in the hundreds.
Yeah, so I
Anyway,
mean, this is exciting
so
because
far.
this replaces a lot of problems.
Wow! If you could replace lithium with sodium,
Jeez.
that would drop the price of these